61. Why, when he had begun with Cain, he still mentions him here in the second place when he says, And God had respect unto Abel and unto his offerings, but unto Cain and unto his sacrifices he paid no attention. In the first place, because the good man, who is by nature first, is not at first perceived by the outward senses of any man except in his own turn, and by people of virtuous conduct. Secondly, because the good and the wicked man are two distinct characters. He accepts the good man, seeing that he is a lover of what is good and an eager student of virtue, but he rejects and regards with aversion the wicked man, presuming that he will be prone to that side by the order of nature. Therefore he says here with exceeding fitness that God had regard not to the offerings, but to those who offered them, rather than to the gifts themselves. For men have regard to and regulate their approbation by the abundance and richness of offerings. But God looks at the sincerity of the soul, having no regard to ambition or illusion of any kind. 62. What is the meaning of the distinction here made between a gift and a sacrifice? The man who slays a sacrifice after having made a division pours the blood around the altar and takes the flesh home, but he who offers it as a gift offers as it should seem the whole to him who accepts it. Therefore the man who is a lover of self is a distributor, like Cain, but he who is a lover of God is the giver of a free gift, as was Abel. 63. How it was that Cain became aware that his offering had not pleased God. Perhaps he resolved his doubts, an additional cause being added, for sorrow seized upon him and his countenance fell. Therefore he took the sorrow which he felt as an indication that he had been sacrificing what was not pleasing or approved of, when joy and happiness would have been suited to one who was sacrificing with purity of heart and spirit. 64. Why is it that the expression used is not because you do not offer rightly, but because or unless you do not divide rightly? In the first place, we must understand that right division and improper division are nothing else but order and the want of it. And it is by order that the universal world and its parts were made, since the Creator of the world, when he began to arrange and regulate the previously untamed and unarranged power, which was liable to suffering, employed section and division. For he placed the heavy elements, which were prone to descend downwards by their own nature, namely the earth and the water, in the center of the universe. But he placed the air and the fire at a greater altitude, as they were raised on high by reason of their lightness. But separating and dividing the pure nature, namely heaven, he carried it round and diffused it over the universe, so that it should be completely invisible to all men, containing within itself the whole universe and all its parts. Again, the statement that animals and plants are produced out of seeds, some moist and some dry, what else does it mean but the inevitable dissection and separation of distinction? Therefore it follows inevitably that this order and arrangement of the universe must be imitated in all things, especially in feeling and acknowledging gratitude, by which we are invited to requite in some degree and manner the kindness of those who have showered greater benefits liberally on us. Moreover, to pay one's thanks to God is an action which is intrinsically right in itself. It is not to be disapproved of that he should receive the offerings due to him at the earliest moment, and fresh gifts from the first fruits of everything, not being dishonored by any negligence on our part. Since it is not fitting that man should reserve for himself the first and most excellent things which are created, and should offer what is only second best to the all-wise God and Creator, for that division would be faulty and blameworthy, showing a most preposterous and unnatural arrangement. 65. What is the meaning of the expression, you have done wrongly, now rest? He is here giving very useful advice, since to do no wrong at all is the greatest of all good things. But he who sins and who thus blushes and is overwhelmed with shame is near akin to him, being, if I may use such a phrase, as a younger brother to the elder. For those persons who pride themselves on their errors, as if they had not done wrong, are afflicted with a disease which is difficult to cure, or rather which is altogether incurable. 66. Why he seems to be giving what is good into the hands of a wicked man when he says, and unto thee shall be his desire. He does not deliver good into his hand, but the expression is heard with different feelings, since he is speaking not of a pious man, but after the action is accomplished, saying of him, the desire in respect of the impiety of this man's wickedness will be towards you. Do not therefore talk about necessity, but about your own habits, in order that thus he may represent the voluntary action. And again the sentence, and you shall be his ruler over him, has a reference to the operation. In the first place, you begin to act with wickedness, and now behold, another iniquity follows the great and injurious iniquity. Therefore he both thinks and affirms that this is the principal part of all voluntary injury. 67. Why slew his brother in the field? That, as all infecundity and sterility arises from a neglect of sowing and planting land a second time, he may be kept continually in mind of his wicked murder, and self-blamed for it, since the ground was not to be the same for the future after it was compelled, contrary to its nature, to drink of human blood, to bring forth food to that man who imbued it with a polluted stain of blood. 68. Why he who knows all things asks the fratricide, Where is thy brother Abel? He puts this question to him because he wishes the man to confess voluntarily and spontaneously of his own accord, so that he may not imagine that everything is done out of necessity. For he who had slain another through necessity would confess unwillingly as having done the deed unwillingly, since that which does not depend upon ourselves does not deserve accusation. But the man who has done wrong intentionally denies it, for those who do wrong are liable to repentance. Therefore he has interwoven this principle in all parts of his legislation, because the deity himself is never the cause of evil. 69. Why he who had slain his brother makes answer as if he were replying to a man and says, I do not know, am I my brother's keeper? It is the opinion of an atheist to think that the eye of God does not penetrate through everything and behold all things at the same time, piercing not only through what is visible, but also through everything which lurks in the deepest and bottomless, unfathomable abysses. Suppose a person says to him, How can you be ignorant where your brother is? And how is it that you do not know that? When as yet he is one out of only 4 human beings which exist in the world, he being one with both his parents, and you his only brother. To this question the reply made is, I am not my brother's keeper. Oh, what a beautiful apology! And whose keeper and protector ought you to have been, rather than your brother's? But if you have excited your diligence to give effect to violence and injury and fraud and homicide, which are the foulest and most abominable of actions, why do you consider the safety of your brother a secondary object? 70. What is the meaning of the expression, the voice of thy brother's blood cries to me out of the earth? This is especially an example by which to take warning, for the deity listens to those who are worthy, although they be dead, knowing that they are alive as to an incorporeal life, but he averts his countenance from the prayers of the wicked, although they are living a flourishing life, inasmuch as he looks upon them as dead to any real life, caring about their bodies like a sepulchre, and having buried their miserable souls in it.